So this is Spotted Lake. It's quite pretty. And it's a indigenous heritage site. I believe I think the sign here says they used it for healing. Whoa! That was awesome. Okay. Whoa! Whee! God, what am I doing? This was dumb. Like the tall grasses in every samurai movie I've ever watched. It's taller than I am. Ni hao, dudes and dudettes. Today is going to be short. We are just checking out the bottom of Mount Hawthorne here. It might be something we come back and explore another day. So that is interesting rock right there. We get a fair bit of it. I don't think it's just the standard granite. Well, isn't this nice? Looks like we're coming up to one of the lakes. That dried up old pond. Who put a trench there? Why would there be uneven ground in the forest? That's just unheard of. Is that where we is? Oh God, look at the wasps in there. Gripping onto anything it can. Is that them? It's a weird call. It's only one bird. There's Mahoney Lake. That phony Mahoney. Alright, back at the parking lot. Time to sign out. Whoa, I knee. Bonjour, mon ami. There's no joke at the end of this one. I didn't think of one, I guess. Instead, this weekend is a new Canadian holiday, Truth and Reconciliation. This one is a little hard for me, based off how controversial it feels for some people. What I know are the facts that the Canadian government supported a plan to educate Indigenous people and set up what were called residential schools, which were run by the Catholic churches. You can think of a residential school like a boarding school. Basically, you live there, away from your family. Inclusion into these schools were mandatory, like wearing masks during COVID. If wearing a mask was tough, imagine having to give up your kids. The graduation rate at the Kamloops facility was 10,000 children accepted, 168 graduated, which to me means about a 1.7% pass rate. Would you go to a school if you only had a 1.7% chance at graduation? Seems like a giant failure to me. And that was our tax dollars hard at work. We funded a massive failure all the way up to the mid-90s. Your tax dollars went to a school that had a 0% return on its investment. That should, on the face of it, make us all mad. That, however, is not the end of it. It can't be. Why would our government invest so much in an obviously unfunctional system? Well, that's where racism comes in. And it's pretty bad. The literal goal of residential schools were not to educate anyone. It was a program of de-education. Basically, these kids were forced to unlearn their languages, to unlearn their religions, to unlearn their history. It wasn't to educate them to become Christian. It was to force the savage out of them. This is why it was a monumental failure. Not because they wanted to educate people, but to de-educate them. Imagine someone forcing you as a child to go to a boarding school where they were trying to get you to forget your language, your religion, your holidays, your dances, your entire culture, and replace it with something that you are completely unfamiliar with. How can you possibly unteach things? How could someone force you to give up your religion and language? Enter everybody's favorite solution. Corporal punishment. Yay! Wait, that sounds kind of bad. It's actually worse than it sounds. Someone punching you in the face every time you speak English instead of whatever language they wanted you to speak would be pretty bad. Beating you to the point of needing to stay in the infirmary for days to weeks is actually closer to what was going on. Fear is the tool of the coward. The people who ran the residential schools ran it on a platform of fear and abuse. Going about your day-to-day life knowing that if you did one thing that's super familiar and easy for you, that it would cost you weeks of your life in pain and slow healing, then yes, it's going to be a very hard time for you. So that is horrifying, right? But wait, there's more. Imagine being 5 years old and having the snot right beat out of you for having called out for your parents in your natural tongue. It's going to start convincing you that your parents let this happen, that they are not going to protect you. This was an idea cultivated by your new overseers, and you start believing your family has abandoned you. Guess what? There's more. Oftentimes, parental visits were denied altogether without kids knowing the schools denied the parents. Seems odd that a school would deny the parents the right to see their own children, right? Well, sad to say, that was the plot of the story. Not only do you destroy the child's identity, but you decimate the entire family unit, and basically your boarding school is now an orphanage. Children don't trust their parents, can't trust their heritage, cannot possibly trust anyone. A child that cannot trust anyone or anything is going to have a much higher risk of suicide, drug addiction, alcoholism, and indulge in many more self-deprecating and self-destructive behaviors. That's the plan, right there. You cannot force someone to give up their religion, but you can torture them to the point of needing an alternative exit. That's why it's referred to as genocide. It's a slow destruction of language, culture, religion, and values that one culture to favor your own. Erasing indigenous identity is akin to murdering them in an act of traditional genocide. Well, I wish I could say that was it, but it's not. The worst part is yet to come. What happens when you have a group of adults taking care of children that they believe are akin to animals? What happens when that group of people does not punish sex offenders, but rather shuffles them around? Well, they get access to a near unlimited supply of children. I really, really wish pedophilia was not part of this system, but you cannot deny it wasn't a part of it. There are reports of priests alive burying newborns who were birthed because of sexual abuse. Children gave birth to a child in an act that was not consensual, to have their child dumped in a grave to be buried as evidence of a crime. Children in this system routinely died as well, whether suicide in an escape attempt or by being beaten to death. This is one of the reasons so few graduated from these schools. They lost their lives to the system. Families destroyed, children abused horrifically, the loss of portions of entire cultures for a failed school system that we paid for. This is a pretty horrible reality that's far beyond the stuff you would find in horror novels and movies. That was sanctioned and paid for in part or full with our hard-earned dollars. Do I believe my grandparents, parents, and regular Canadians knew what they were paying for? Well, mostly no. I don't think they were informed of what was happening, and if they had a chance to walk through these places and see the actual harm being caused, most would, vomit, then protest their funding of it. Did they know it was supposed to erase indigenous culture? Well, yes, that was the point. They were fed from both the churches and the governments that the indigenous population was a problem for Western culture. This is painfully obvious when you look at how indigenous people were portrayed. Comical savages that lived to harm Western settlements, forgetting all the help that they have provided to help us grow here. If you believe with your whole heart that if these people were not introduced to your God, then they would burn forever in the lake of fire for simply being born into a wrong culture, then yes, you are going to want to help save them. They were not fully aware of how converting these people would take form. However, indigenous people were adamant that things were foul from the beginning. How could our ancestors trust them? Our government considered them savages and not real people. How can you believe them over your own priests and pastors telling them that they are not worth listening to? How do you believe a culture that you are not a part of and do not understand that the people you put your faith and trust in are doing very terrible things? We as a culture turned a blind eye as things got worse and worse, much like the lead up to World War II. The Germans were not putting Jewish people into ghettos. Don't be silly. They would never... Wait, what? They did? Well, it can't be as bad as they're saying it is. Those Jewish people tend to fib and tell a little white lie. What? It's even worse? What do you mean they're selling all of their possessions to help fund a giant military buildup? We often can't believe people are capable of doing some of the most terrible things to other people. We believe that our people will treat other people with respect, or that we need to dehumanize the people we feel are a problem. Am I less proud to be a Canadian? Well, no. I'm less proud of our government and religious structures for sure, but I'm still proud of my family and Canadians in general, as most Canadians are working towards being better. Does this mean donating to major organizations and marching in hundreds of protests? No, it's more about being willing to help an Indigenous person in the same way you would help those of your own community. If you stop to help a Christian replace a flat tire, then do that for an indigenous person too, if they need similar help. It means to stand up for someone being bullied for who they are. It means to remember to say hello to them if you said hello to someone else. Love thy neighbor. Remember, if we ignore our history and feel no need to try and be better, then we won't have much to fight for. To shove this under the rug is to say that it's okay if it happens again. It's absolutely not okay to support the termination of an entire culture. We were lied to and ignored the truth coming from a culture not our own. This both erodes our own culture and strips us of our promises to our creators. We don't move forward by destroying our own culture. We move forward by re-examining our culture. If you believe in a creator, then you believe that that creator created all people. You understand that your creator put challenges on this earth that they hope you will rise to and overcome. Wiping out some of their creations is not the way to honor their challenge to you. Living with them and understanding them, allowing them to be integrated into your culture or let them choose not to, allowing people of your culture to join theirs if they choose to, is the way to honor your creator, for God's truth is immutable, and their goal is not to force people to choose, but to be the answers they need to thrive and grow. Allow your creator to continue to teach you how to love thy neighbor and strengthen your own faith and personal growth. I wish you all a solemn and peaceful Truth and Reconciliation Day. Woe I me, guys. I love you all.